driver license. NTJ 891. It's a black Monte Carlo, 2 males in it. NTJ 891. And let's try and yank that guy. Let's get up here and let's stop him if we have to. Okay, hold on, man, till we get enough people up there. All right, roll up here. They're making a right turn on 117. Right on 117. Man, we're right behind you, man. You want to do it? Let's do it. Just look down on their guys holding up something in the front. Let's do it. Shut any car stop. Let's do it.
There's a gunfight going outside my office window. Shoot guns and machine guns.
Multiple rounds of gunfire being fired out in the street. 2 cars apart. There are people screaming. There's some kind of gunfire or something going outside my house. There's a lot of gunfight going on out here. I don't know if the police are there or not.
There were so many thoughts going through my mind during the shootout. The immense volume of fire, especially the crack of Platts 223, immediately brought back memories for me of Vietnam. There was the dust, the noise level, the people getting shot, the inability to see the enemy at times, the overall frustration, the loss of friends. It was a firefight.
Nothing is more terrible than a battle won, except a battle lost. It was a terrible battle to win, but we lost so much.
This video presentation concerns the tragic events of April the 11th, 1986 in Miami, Florida. In a firefight lasting over 4 minutes, 2 special agents of the FBI were slain and 5 other agents were wounded.
Detective Sergeant David Rivers of the Metro-Dade Police Department was the supervisory detective in charge of the crime scene on that particular day, and he will take you through the series of events, the movement of cars, and the actual forensic side of this case. Dave?
Thank you very much, Gordon. When the decision to make this stop was made, Agents Hanlon and Morales pulled out of the line and pulled past Agents Grogan and Dove. The reasons for Hanlon and Morales pulling out in this particular configuration was to try to force the subjects off to the west. Grogan and Dove proceeded around Hanlon and the suspect vehicle to get down 82nd Avenue to block that avenue of escape. Manalzi then pulled into the rear, right behind the suspect vehicle. He stated that the main concern he had at that particular point was to take the attention of the suspects off of Hanlon and Morales and focus their attention at another area. And he decided the best way he could do this was to ram the rear of the suspect vehicle. Just prior to striking the vehicle, he had taken and placed his weapon in his lap. When he struck the rear of the suspect vehicle, his driver's door went open. His perception was that the gun went out onto the street, which effectively left him unarmed. When he struck the back of the vehicle, it caused it to disengage with Agents Hanlon and Morales. At this particular point, the suspect vehicle was in a tight left-hand turn, and when they hit the gravel off to the side of the road over here, they went into a slide in that particular direction. Hanlon and Morales had been in a tight right-hand turn, so when they hit the gravel off to the side of the road in the same area, they went into a right-hand slide. Hanlon and Morales' vehicle proceeded west until it struck the concrete wall. The suspect vehicle comes out of the cloud of dust off to the side of the road back onto 82nd Avenue. When he does, Manalzi said that at that particular point he was concerned with the fact that the suspects were now able to proceed northbound on 82nd Avenue. He initiated another ramming maneuver. He then proceeds to force the vehicle off to the east side of the roadway into the trees on the north side of the duplex. Gordon McNeil pulls over parallel to try to block a rear escape. Reisner and Aranti have arrived and positioned themselves across the street, and Grogan and Dove pull up to the rear of the suspect vehicle. There have been no shots fired yet. As soon as the cars come to final rest, all kind of gunfire erupts. Let's go to Agent Manalzi. His first concern obviously was to get out of that particular vehicle and get back over to where he thought he'd lost his weapon. As he opens the driver's door and rolls out, gunfire has been coming from inside the suspect vehicle. And as he's rolling out, Agent Manalzi is hit with lead fragments from the projectile from the .223. He then proceeds westbound over to the west side of 82nd Avenue, attempting to locate his weapon and get involved in the action. Gordon McNeil pulls over to try to block a rear escape.
As I came to a stop, I was already taking hits from Platts 223. As I came to a stop, I was already taking hits from Platts 223. Because of the incoming fire, I was not able to reach for my shotgun in the back seat. I left my vehicle and took a position of cover behind the engine block of Manalzi's car and immediately took the subjects under fire with my revolver from a distance of approximately 6 to 8 feet. About this time, Hanlon and Morales, who had crashed across the street, were rolling out of their car. Ed Morales was armed with his revolver and a 12-gauge shotgun. Hanlon, who had lost his revolver sometime during the crash sequence, was armed with his backup weapon, a 5-shot Chief Special, which he was carrying in an ankle holster. John Hanlon ran across 82nd Avenue to assist Grogan and Dove. Ed Morales ran across to assist me. As they crossed, a furious firefight was taking place.
When I rolled out of that car, I saw Ben Grogan, and he was by himself. And I said, I have got to get across the street, because I put myself in his position. If I was over there by myself being shot at, that terror of being alone. You want to feel that there's somebody with you, and I wanted to get across the street and help.
I fired 4 shots initially into the windshield and driver's window of the subject's car. I later found out that one of these rounds struck Maddox. After the first 4 rounds, my hand was struck by a .223 round and was literally blown back to a vertical position. I looked at my hand. There was extensive damage, but surprisingly, I had no sensation of pain. So I put the gun back down and fired my last 2 rounds. About this time, Ed came around the back of my car, was hit in the left arm by a .223 round, and immediately fell to the ground. He later said it felt like he'd been hit by a sledgehammer. Ed then retreated to a position behind my vehicle. I sought cover beside my vehicle where I attempted to reload my handgun. To the best of my knowledge, Platt and Maddox were still in the black Monte Carlo at this point. 13 shell casings from Platt's .223 were later recovered from inside that vehicle.
In talking to Agents Orantia and Reisner, when they pulled up on the scene, Orantia did not exit his vehicle because there was an immediate threat over here, and he started to fire from inside the car. Agent Reisner exited with his 9mm, and he fired several rounds across the street over here. Now, in examining Mr. Platt's wounds, his right arm and his right portion of his chest cavity took a 9mm round that was ballistically identified as coming from Agent Dove's weapon. One of the few times that his right side was exposed to Agent Dove was when he would have been crawling out of that window to take up a position on the other side of the civilian vehicle. According to the Dade County medical examiner that performed the autopsies, this was a non-survivable wound. He takes a round from Agent Reisner. He also takes a through-and-through round to his right forearm.
As I reached the side of my car, I knew that I was being shot at because I could see dirt flying and asphalt and gravel kicking up around me. I could not use my injured right hand, so I was trying to reload my weapon with my left hand. At the same time, I was rolling back and forth on the ground, trying to keep from being hit. I thought that if I stopped moving, that he would get me. I was having great difficulty reloading my revolver because of blood and bone fragments from my injured hand getting into the cylinder. I was fighting to survive. Unable to successfully reload my handgun, I decided to try again for the shotgun in the rear seat of my car. I stood up, but before I could reach my car, I looked in the direction that Hanlon, Dove, and Grogan were firing, and I spotted Platt. At the same time, Platt looked directly at me and he smiled. He almost looked like he was enjoying himself. I realized that he was about to shoot at me again and tried to evade the incoming fire. As I turned away from him, I felt a breeze over my right shoulder and felt a breeze and a nick on the side of my head. An instant later, I felt the full impact of another .223 round slamming into the side of my neck. I went down in the middle of the street, landing on my back with my head pointed in Platt's direction. I was later told that the round which had entered my neck ricocheted off my spinal column and traveled down into my chest cavity. I could still see and hear what was going on, but this wound left me paralyzed from the neck down for the next 3 or 4 hours. After Hanlon crossed the street, he took up a position at the right rear of Grogan's car and began firing at Platt and Maddox. After 3 rounds, John ducked down, then came back up and fired his last 2 rounds. While attempting to reload, he felt a breeze blow by his right arm. He moved a little to the left, then was struck in the hand by a round from Platt's Mini 14. This round also caused severe damage to Hanlon's right forearm and bicep. Unable to finish reloading because of this injury, Hanlon rolled over and announced that he had been hit. At this point, I was lying paralyzed in the street. Ed was wounded and Hanlon had just been hit and was lying on his back. Platt left his position behind the black Oldsmobile Cutlass and approached Ben and Jerry's car. He fired as he moved. Hanlon looked underneath the car and saw a man approaching wearing Nike running shoes. Hanlon heard Ben say, "Oh my God," and heard him go down. Platt leaned over the right rear fender and shot Hanlon in the groin. Having now been hit a second time, Hanlon rolled over toward Dove. Platt moved to the left rear of the car and shot Dove. Dove fell face down just inches from Hanlon. Saw Dove try to push himself up, but then saw Dove's body jerk twice as he was hit 2 more times by Platt's Mini 14. After shooting Dove, Platt entered Grogan's car from the driver's side as Maddox approached from the passenger side. While getting in, Platt was struck in the feet with 12-gauge double-aught buck pellets from Morales' shotgun. Ed then moved to the right rear bumper of my car, positioned the shotgun on the bumper, and with one hand fired the next round, which hit Grogan's car just forward of the driver's door. He then rolled into a seated position, placed the shotgun between his knees, and with one hand racked the action. Realizing that the last shot had missed the subject, Ed took careful aim just below the driver's left nipple and fired again. Platt's face jerked to the side as he was hit in the side of the face with several double-aught buck pellets. Ed rolled back and repeated the same reloading maneuver. Before firing his 4th shot, Ed could see the subjects apparently trying to get the car started. Ed fired into the windshield, causing it to explode. Ed reloaded and fired his 5th and final round into the same area. This time, he saw Maddox jerk as he was struck in the face. It was later determined that Platt and Maddox received numerous double-aught buck hits, none of which were fatal. Ed's shotgun was now empty. A civilian witness told us that while Ed was turned away from the subjects, Platt exited Grogan's vehicle and with ghost-like movements walked up to Ed, fired 3 rounds from point-blank range, then stumbled back into the car. All 3 rounds missed. How he missed, we'll never know. Unaware that these shots had even been fired, Ed struggled to his feet, drew his revolver, and started walking towards Grogan's vehicle. He said that as he got up, everything was starting to get dark around the edges. He was afraid that he was about to lose consciousness. To combat this, he focused all his energy on the occupants of the vehicle. He fired his first 2 rounds into Platt. He couldn't see Maddox clearly, so he moved closer and fired 3 rounds at him. By then, Ed was standing just outside the driver's window and put the last round into Platt. At this point, Ron Reisner ran across the street and told him that it was all over. Although both subjects had previously received multiple hits, they were not incapacitated until struck in the head of these last rounds. In the span of less than 5 minutes, over 140 rounds had been fired. 2 special agents and both subjects lay dead, and 5 of the surviving 6 agents were wounded.